This is one of the most important pieces of concrete in Japan, and it's born out of one of history's most chilling events.
This is what it looks like when a wave of unfathomable size crashes on thousands of lives.
And it looks like the tsunami has engulfed several cities.
We are now going into uncharted territory. We are thinking the unthinkable. This could be a Chernobyl in the making.
The 2011 earthquake and tsunami on the east coast of Japan left roughly 20,000 people dead, decimating entire towns and triggering a nuclear disaster. In the wake of the destruction, the government poured billions of dollars into building new tsunami defense systems. Now, nearly 400 kilometers of tall concrete walls are standing along the coast, designed to weaken strong waves and buy people time to evacuate during the next disaster. But the question is, at what cost? Seawalls have long been part of Japan's coastline, and over the centuries the country's made a name for itself as a world leader in coastal engineering. Just take the town of Taro. It endured two devastating hurricanes in 1896 and 1933. Soon after, it became a global example of coastal defence systems, constructing an X-shaped structure with 2.4 kilometres of seawalls standing 10 metres tall. Elsewhere in Japan, cities were incorporating similar elements of coastal defence, including earthquake-resistant building codes and tsunami evacuation routes. But on March 11, 2011, they weren't enough.
The villagers had complete faith in this tsunami wall, and they believed it would stop any tsunami. But it didn't.
Japan's seawalls were designed to hold back waves up to 8 metres, but the 2011 earthquake saw them reach 12 to 15 metres in height. The walls did reduce the force of the tsunami, but the massive waves still crashed over the top, in some cases crushing the structures completely and failing to protect the Fukushima nuclear plant.
Really, before that, they were the best prepared nation in the world for a tsunami. But the tsunami put it simply, was much bigger than they expected.
That's Dr. David McGovern. He's an expert on tsunamis and fluid mechanics.
The approach now is, well, that's fine. We're going to build big walls. We're going to build them in such a way that if they get overtopped, they don't fail as in any other structural way.
After 2011, the Japanese government set aside $12 billion to repair and build nearly 400 kilometres of seawalls along the northeast coast. These new structures are taller than the ones that stood before, rising up to 14.7 metres in some areas, supported by foundations that are around 25 metres deep in places. They come complete with wider bases and reinforced inner walls to better absorb the impact of waves and help prevent them from collapsing. As part of Dr. McGovern's research, he built a massive indoor tsunami simulator in collaboration with HR Wallingford and UCL. It can replicate waves like the ones that hit Japan in 2011.
In terms of sea walls, what's quite key is that when the tsunami approaches, it does so in a way that is not really reflective of how we sort of see it in terms of the movies and films, where you have a great big breaking, crashing wave coming onto the wall. It doesn't really happen like that. And if you were to look at YouTube video of Japan, you would see a lot of the tsunami and the way it kind of comes on to the ground and overtops seawalls. It's not really a broken wave. It's like a continually rising flood. And so when that tsunami hits the wall, it tends to do so in an unbroken form. And that means that the force on the wall really is just described by this hydrostatic force.
New recommendations in Japan's key disaster scenario manual include using geotextile membranes in sea dikes to try and stop the leaking of infill material, widening breakwater rubble mounds, and interlinking and reinforcing concrete blocks in seawalls. But the wall's height is the biggest upgrade, and perhaps the biggest downside. One concern researchers have is that super high seawalls could actually make the impact of tsunamis worse by creating a dam-like blockade that could release an even more intense torrent if it breaks. And to some residents, they're simply an eyesore. In some areas, they're nearly 4 stories high, blocking the view of the sea entirely and leaving some locals feeling like they're in a bit of a prison. Others worry that the walls will put off tourists, or that they're destroying their community's livelihood and culture next to the sea.
I think the main takeaway is that this is a natural hazard, and it's not one that we're ever going to be able to defend against completely.
Not all tsunamis are created equal. Level 1 tsunamis come every 50 to 160 years, and they're what the new seawalls are designed to protect against. But for Level 2 tsunamis that can occur every few hundred or few thousand years, seawalls alone aren't enough. Public education, evacuation routes, and adequate warning systems all need to form part of a wider system of defence. Some have suggested alternatives or supplements to the towering concrete walls. One idea is tsunami mitigation parks, essentially combining green elements like hills and trees with the more traditional grey concrete engineering bits. The Merino project proposes building concrete breakwaters on the coast, backed up by deep-rooted trees to help weaken the power of tsunami waves and stop drifting objects. Of course, another tactic is to move further upland away from the coast. Many municipalities have already relocated their public facilities to higher ground, and some have banned construction on flatlands near the coast. Japan's seawalls are an astounding feat of engineering and offer a degree of resilience in the face of devastating destruction. But they also highlight the delicate balance between protecting ourselves from nature while living alongside it, something that's becoming even more prevalent as extreme weather becomes more common.
So there's 2 things that need to be done. The current infrastructure, which is tens of billions of pounds worth of infrastructure around the world, needs to be looked at to see whether it's going to be fit for purpose or whether it needs to be retrofitted. And then any new infrastructure, which we will need a lot more of because of the increased storms severity and frequency, and because of the sea level rise, how do we design that with that in mind? And the big question is we still don't really know precisely what the future will hold.
The 2011 disaster showed us that even the most tsunami-proof cities aren't indestructible. 10 years later, this massive stretch of towering concrete stands as a constant reminder of the past, and a bid to engineer safer towns for the future. This video was made possible by Bluebeam. You can learn more about that at the link below. And as always, if you enjoyed this video and you want to get more from the definitive video channel for construction, make sure you subscribe to the B1M.